Hey, Travis,
What's up?
I bet I'm in a better place than you are.
Now I can see that.
I am in
I'm in the darkness and you're in the light.
I am in Priest Lake, Idaho. That is no fake backgrounds. That's the real deal. No AI here.
Well, that's a fake background behind me. I have it all. See, even my hands are blurry.
That's still probably because you still got a busted bookcase.
Yes, the new
God,
bookcases are coming in Wednesday.
that is really pitiful.
Yes, I am a pitiful person.
So
So, yeah.
my wife and up here and I are up here with some friends. I'm actually doing a job up here, and they own a
Yeah.
cabin on Priest Lake, and it's one of the most amazing places in all of God's green earth.
It looks gorgeous.
It's really beautiful. Lots of pine trees. This incredible lake, and they they come up here. Our friends come. The season up here is only about 4 months long, right? So they come up
Hmm.
here because it's frozen solid the rest of the time, and
Yeah.
they come up here with like 3 weeks worth of stuff they want to do, and they call it Priest Lake paralysis, right? You
Yeah.
get up here and you work like crazy for about 3 days, and then it's like I don't want to do anything more. And you just sit out on the deck with a glass of wine and watch the sun go around the world. And it's a pretty remarkable place.
It looks it.
Yeah.
I've never been to Idaho, but people say it's the people that have been there have said it's sort of like the just the open secret. Everybody that's been there says it's one of the most beautiful states that you can go to in this country. But when you think beautiful states, you don't really think Idaho,
Yeah.
but it's
Yeah.
gorgeous there.
It's sensational. And there's a lot of different kinds of places. But I wanted to talk to you, Travis. I had a friend of mine pass away this morning. Um, he was an old acting coach of mine. About 20 years ago, I just got a bug to do some acting and took classes for 3 years or so and did a play or two and made me fearless to get on stage and act like a fool. And I had a lot of fun, but my friend Tom, who owned the studio and the theater, passed away this morning, and I'm pretty
And I'm
sure
so
he knew.
sorry.
I'm pretty sure he knew the Lord, but it's a it's a sad thing, this death stuff.
Yeah.
And here I am in Idaho, just really looking at God's beauty and dealing with the death of a friend at the same time, and it's just sometimes those feelings are kind of overwhelming, huh?
Of course. I mean, someone that you cherished and admired just isn't with us anymore.
It's such a
And
weird thing. Yeah.
and you take your friends for granted. I have good friends that I haven't called in a while, and whenever I hear you, when I hear you say this, or I hear somebody else that speaks of a loss, I think I have to call my friends. I have to keep closer tabs with them, because if I don't, then I'll wake up one day and they will not be available for me. I can't contact them anymore. We,
Right.
we take our friendships for granted.
Or we won't wake up one day and we'll be the one that's gone.
It's true.
I know that one of the reasons for death is so that we deal with our own mortality. It takes somebody else dying for us to think about it, which is kind of tragic. But we gotta take it into account. We gotta think about it. We gotta ponder it. And I know a lot of people think they sort of have a kind of a half relationship with God, and they hope things will be okay. And I remember talking to somebody once who said, "Yeah, I believe in the afterlife. I hope when I get there, it's going to be all right for me." And he didn't really he wasn't really a religious man. He just thought he'd get through it like you get through this. And man, it's so hard to talk about our faith to people. It's so hard to witness, and do the stuff we're supposed to do when we really believe that death, that we only have this life to meet Christ, and yet we worry about how we look or what the other person is going to think of us. And I've been thinking about all that stuff today.
Well, it's interesting. I mean, we started this show addressing two issues: the beauty of your surroundings, and yet as you sit in the midst of all that beauty, you're contemplating the ugly death of your friend. Death is a very ugly, horrible thing. I'm reading Gavin Wertland's book on apologetics. I every time I hear him or read what he has to say, I'm just lifted up. I mean, I think he is one of our greatest treasures right now in the church. And his book is entitled Why God Makes Sense in a World That Doesn't. And I just finished the second chapter, and the chapter is on meaning. And so I'm going to pass on to you what I learned from him. Or this comes from C.S. Lewis, but Gavin just comes up with this great analogy at the end. But he's just interacting with all these authors, Lewis, Tolkien, and others, who are talking about, for example, is music? Where does our appreciation for music come from? Well, if naturalism is true, it's kind of a happy accident. Where does beauty come from? Well, if naturalism is true, it's just in the eye of the beholder. There's nothing objective about it. What about math?
Yeah.
How is it that this thing that's going on in my head just happens to correspond so well with that outside world going on out there?
Yeah.
And so all of these are my words, but I don't think Dr. Wertland would see these as a wrong way of putting his point. I mean, these are all signposts of transcendence. And he gives this great analogy near the end of the chapter where he says, if naturalism is true, if atheism is true, or if theism is true, if either one is true, we're all in a kind of dark prison. If naturalism is true, we are sitting in that prison, and music and beauty and the things that give us meaning are all like opioids that just sort of keep us going in this prison of darkness that we live in, this horrible world we live in. They're like opioids that sort of give us a high before we die. And if naturalism is true at the end, you can't say love wins. No, death wins. Death defeats everything. If theism is true, then beauty, music, meaning, math, the design features of the universe, all of these are windows that allow us to peer outside of this dark prison we're in and allow us to see sort of a picture of a world to come. And so that might be something of hopefully a comfort to you that, if you look at your friend's death through the eyes of atheism, that's it. You will never see him again. But as you sit in that beautiful forest and look at the world around you, hopefully you can see all of that as a window into the realm of the divine. Your friend, if he knew the Lord, is there waiting for you and all of his family.
Yeah. I have a couple things to say on that. I think, it never made sense to me that if evolution were true, if it was some unguided, mindless process, then things like beauty and purpose and rationality, I would think that those are all things that do not help us survive. We're out in the middle of the night looking at the night sky going, wow, that's really beautiful. And, this lion jumps on us because we were off our guard and eats us. You'd think that stuff would have been weeded out a long time ago. None of that stuff helps us survive. It's all baggage.
Right.
It's like carrying around an extra 100 pounds when you look at it from an evolutionary standpoint. All that stuff makes way more sense from a not just a theistic standpoint, but I like to say we live in a personal universe.
Yeah.
You know, the stuff that makes sense, the stuff that compels us, the stuff that motivates us, the things that have meaning, it's all personal.
Right.
It points to a personal source, the way that the way I think about it.
Right. No, I agree. Truth is not necessary for survival. Alvin Plantinga points this out. So if our brains were developed simply for what some evolutionary biologists would call the 4 F's: feeding, fighting, fleeing, and reproducing. If that's why our brains were developed, if that's the purpose, then there's no reason that we should trust our cognitive abilities at giving truth to us.
Yeah.
As long as your brain can come up with a kind of consistent pattern, it can survive. And it doesn't have to have true beliefs to survive. And so you're right. I think that the reliability of our cognitive abilities at grasping truth is just an accidental byproduct of the evolutionary process, which, when you put it in that way, there's no reason to trust our cognitive abilities at arriving at any truth.
Yeah.
Which would include the proposition atheism is true. And so that would make atheism self-defeating, literally.
Yeah. I agree.
And I think we have to be, go ahead.
I have a challenge for anyone who's an agnostic or an atheist. And here's my challenge. Christianity, lived properly, in my opinion, provides the happiest life that a person can live. I think we're built for love, and Christianity gives us a basis for that. We're built to have a purpose. We're not built to try to be comfortable and sit on the couch. We're built to have a purpose. And Christianity gives us an adventure unlike, better than Lord of the Rings. And we find significance in our relationship with God and also in our relationship with other people. We're built for love. And so here's the challenge. If someone who is an atheist, who doesn't believe in God and doesn't believe in ultimate hope, purpose, or destiny, that love is really just some biological byproduct, truth doesn't really matter in that scenario. My challenge is, if you're an atheist, you should become a Christian, because becoming a Christian is going to offer you the best life that you can have in this short time that you have before you die. What do you think of that?
No, I agree. I mean, another way to put it is, it just doesn't matter. So why not just embrace the fantasy land and give yourself a few more opioids on your way to death? In other words, feel good feelings that you're going to live in heaven forever and all of that.
That's right.
It doesn't matter if atheism is true. It doesn't matter either way. So you might as well inject your mind with that sort of thing, because you're heading to oblivion anyway.
Because none of the other stuff works. We know it. You listen to somebody like Jordan Peterson talk about, somebody who wants sex all the time, or power, or money, or whatever it is. None of that stuff satisfies. Now, it's easy to say it doesn't satisfy because only God satisfies, but even from an atheistic, non-theistic viewpoint, that stuff psychologically doesn't make us happy. It doesn't satisfy. And yet Christianity, a relationship with God, does satisfy. Now, an atheist would say, well, that's a false relationship. And my response is, well, what else you got? What are you going to do? What are you going to do that trumps that? At least if it's all wrong, if we're completely wrong about our Christian faith, we're going to die in a better, happier place than the atheist would. But what the atheist is going to find, if he takes my challenge and becomes a Christian, he's going to realize it's true.
Right. I agree with you. I think I don't know. The more I chew on it, the more absurd atheism gets, and it does seem to me that William Lane Craig and others are right that in order to have true objective meaning in life, you have to have the existence of God and then immortality.
Yeah.
And those two things are necessary. So that doesn't prove Christianity, but at least you can say Christianity is a version of theism that offers that. And so now the question is, well, which version of theism is true? And then we have other considerations. The other thing that I don't know if atheists can really deal with is how do they account for the guilty feelings they have?
Yeah.
If you do something wrong, whatever that means, why feel guilty over it? What one bag of chemicals does to another shouldn't really matter. And since I'm just a bag of chemicals, what I do to another person shouldn't matter. And the reason I'm bringing all that up is because I saw Sound of Freedom over the weekend, and I just wanted to talk a little bit about the movie.
Yeah, tell me about it. I've been hearing nothing but amazing things about it.
Sound of Freedom is it's put out by Angel Studios. It's sort of an independent studio. They're not really connected with Hollywood. Those who wrote and produced the movie worked on a $15 million budget, which is dirt cheap these days.
Yeah.
And it's my understanding that it's now grossed over $100 million in the box office. And they had no media press coverage they didn't have any sort of media coverage in their budget. So they've only been advertising this through word of mouth. And it's really connected with a lot of people. Sound of Freedom is about the horrible practice of child trafficking that we all kind of know goes on, but this really puts a face on it. And it's about the contributions of Tim Ballard in this area. Tim Ballard worked for Homeland Security. He now works with an organization that continues to free children from this kind of bondage. But it started off as a individual working for one of our government agencies. He sought out pedophiles who trafficked in child porn, and when they would find out a person doing that, they would spy on him. They would get probable cause, spy on him, and when they caught him looking at that material, they would arrest this individual. And after so many years of doing this, his wife asked him, "What are you doing about the children that are suffering? These images that these pedophiles are watching, these images are being produced at the expense of young children that are being sexually abused by these people in the videos." And so Tim Ballard, who's played by Jim Caviezel, Mira Sorvino plays his wife. She does a fantastic job. The entire cast just does a fantastic job. You know what's going on, but you never see it. It's done very tastefully. But Tim Ballard portrayed himself as a pedophile to this guy that they arrested.
Wow.
The beginning of the movie, you see a guy get arrested, and he portrays himself that way. He gets his confidence, and this guy arranges for him to meet a child. And so what happens is Tim Ballard goes to the border. The guy that is transporting this little boy across the border, I'm telling you, Ross, I cried most of the movie. But he rescues this child from this horrible, sick, twisted person who's taking him across the border. He arrests that guy, and he reunites this little child with his son down in Central America. It turns out that this little boy has a sister that was also kidnapped. And so Tim Ballard goes down, and they actually create a network of gentlemen who want to create an island, a sex island, kind of like a Jeff Epstein deal.
Wow.
And they do a sting operation where they end up saving 56 children. Um, and overall, Tim Ballard, as of the making of the movie, Tim Ballard has saved over 120 children.
Wow.
And this, what's really irking me about this is that the mainstream media is attacking this movie as the fruit of a conspiracy theory involving QAnon. So a few years ago, we all heard about QAnon, and there were these conspiracy theories about child trafficking involved in that. Well, this has nothing to do with that. This has everything to do with a true story. They actually show the footage of Tim Ballard testifying before Congress. They show the video footage of them raiding the island. This is all at the end of the movie, so you actually see the footage. It's a true story. In fact, a few years ago, CNN was praising Tim Ballard. They actually had him on, and he was talking about what he has done up to that point and what he's trying to do. And this movie has been 5 years in the making. So long before they even heard the name QAnon, they were putting this movie in motion. It is in no way, shape, or form inspired by this conspiracy theory involving QAnon. So that has to be shouted loud and clear, because just a few days ago, CNN did an interview where there was this podcaster who's all about debunking QAnon, who was trying to debunk the statistics of this movie. We're talking about a $180 billion business involving the trafficking of children for the purpose of sexually exploiting them. $180 billion. In my opinion, $1 is far too much. But we're talking about $180 billion. That's unconscionable. And Americans are the largest purveyors of this horrible material, the child porn, as well as exploiting children. And so why would the liberal mainstream media be all about attacking this movie? Who's paying these people to engage in this line of questioning in debunking this film? Somebody has to be, because there's no way that a normal person would be against a film that exploits this horrible practice and brings light and brings this to our awareness, especially if the story is true. I mean, if Tim Ballard sat down and just wrote a script from scratch and just told a story about it, it would still be okay, obviously.
Right.
I mean, he would just be telling a fictional account of something that really happens, and there would be nothing wrong with that. But the fact that this is actually based on a true story is all the more phenomenal. And the fact that the liberal media, the mainstream media, is attacking it baffles me. Isn't this something we can all get on board on? Aren't we all against the exploitation of children?
You know, this fits right in with what we talked about a few weeks ago about how, you know, the basic depravity of human beings.
Sure.
You know, it's interesting what you said, that it's already made $100 million. That means it's made more than the Indiana Jones reboot.
Which, for all the reviews I'm getting on that that's just a horrible movie. It's a waste of time to see. I'm not going to go see that stupid movie. I mean, anything that Disney puts out now, you have to think twice about going to go see, because they're just taking old characters and ruining them.
Yeah.
They're emasculating our male heroes, and they're taking these cartoons and putting out these live action films, and they're ruining the characters. I mean, Snow White, she's not a white lady, even though the German fictional story describes Snow White as white as snow. And the dwarves are not dwarves. They don't understand that there is a fictional character type called a dwarf that is not a description of a human being who has, suffers from dwarfism. Right. I mean, so the seven dwarves, if you see a picture of them, there's a chick. She's a part, and it's the diversity group. Like it's the woke message all over again. And they bragged about the fact that this is not about love. So Snow White is not rescued by her Prince Charming, who kisses her and awakens her from her deep sleep. No, no, no. This is about empowerment. We got to empower a woman and make her as strong as a man.
Wow.
This is just stupid. I mean, why would you want to ruin a great fairy tale like that? I mean, go write your own story with those themes and call it something else. And they can't do that because no one's interested in that kind of story. Why take Indiana Jones and emasculate him the way that they've done in this latest film?
Yeah. Well, that's what they do with sequels. It's keep doing it till you get it wrong.
Yeah. But at least in the older days when they made, gratuitous sequels, they at least, you at least understood the reasoning behind it. And they weren't, they may have been badly written, but they were not out to just totally destroy the character.
Yeah.
Even when they did destroy the character, they weren't intending to. These morons writing these scripts for Hollywood have an agenda, and the joke is on them because I think that Indiana Jones was $300 million.
Yeah, that's what it said. And they said the article I read a couple days ago said it would take about double that to break even. So $600 or $700 million, and it's made 60.
Is that right? It's made only $60 million. $60. It's only made $60 million.
Yeah.
Okay, so Sound of Freedom has almost doubled that.
Yeah. Wow. Good.
And it had a budget that was 4 times cheaper than what Indiana Jones has actually made in the box office.
You know,
I mean, that's, but it tells you everyone loves a good story, even if it's heartbreaking. And Sound of Freedom is heartbreaking. Take your tissues with you, but everyone should pay to go see that movie.
Yeah,
because the funds are going towards stopping this. And I would
encourage
everybody watching this to go to your pastor and see if your church can maybe start a ministry or hook up with an already existing ministry in helping. You can start in your own community. There's not a single community that has not been affected in some way by sex trafficking. And so you can involve yourself in a ministry if you feel that calling. And there's got to be somebody that's watching this that is feeling the call right now to go and in their own local church, get involved with a ministry that helps women that have been brought across the border, helps women get freed from these sex slave traffickers and give them a new life. And go ahead.
I think, Travis, the time is over when we as Christians can just be Christians and not do much. I think the world is changing so fast, and every individual Christian and every church needs to have a mission. They need to have some way that they're advancing the kingdom.
Right.
Otherwise, I watched a really powerful video with Eric Metaxas and Jordan Peterson, where Eric Metaxas has a book called Letter to the American Church, and I really want to read that. I think that's the next book I want to read. And he makes the comparison between the church in before Nazi Germany and the church in America now, and the parallels are terrifying in that we're not doing anything. We're praising Jesus and we're not doing anything. So, I just want to encourage everybody to get on your knees and find out what does God have for you to do about the world, your little universe that you're in.
Right. Jordan Peterson said something very interesting in an interview not too long ago where he said, all of us know minimally 1,000 people quite well. Well, each one of those persons is, 6 degrees away from turning that into 1 million.
Yeah.
And so I think that our sphere of influence is far more significant than we kind of give ourselves credit for. And so imagine if every church had a ministry that helped women escape sex slave trafficking and help children escape this sort of trafficking. Imagine that every church in the United States had that. I think that business, I think that could not make a huge impact in saving the lives of those people and mitigating the strength and power of that business.
You know, from God's standpoint, this is all said and done. But from our standpoint, which is an equally accurate standpoint, it is not. This stuff we really can make a difference with this stuff.
Yeah.
The Lord knows how it's going to play out, but from our timeline, it's not written yet. And I just
want to he's inviting us to make our contribution.
That's right. That's right.
We have the privilege of being able to do this.
You know, Jordan Peterson says we should be thinking about the Christian life as an adventure, and I just think that is one of the most brilliant things. You know, that's how we should be talking about it.
Yeah.
You know, we're you know, Lord of the Rings. That's us. Let's go do it. Let's fight the fight. That's what the Lord has for us. You know, well, let's leave the Shire and go take care of business.
Agreed. Unfortunately, this, as far as this video is concerned, the adventure is over, but our lives do go on, and we're going to meet next week. I love you, man. I'm jealous of you as to where you are, but I'm also, my heart reaches out to you over the loss of your friend, and I pray that you find some solace in what you're experiencing now and in your memories of him.
Yeah, thank you, Travis. I really appreciate it. Love you, man. I love doing this with you.
Love you, man.
All right.
All right. We'll see y'all next week.